What is cybersecurity? Give me a few minutes and I'll give you the basics on how I think about it. It's a little more than just what's in the word. And I want to show this graphic, my 4 pillars of cybersecurity, because I think it's a great way to start thinking about it, and we'll come back to that in a bit. My name's John Bandler. We're talking about cybersecurity, how to organize it for yourself or your organization. In this module, I will tell you what I think cybersecurity is and should be, provide some nuggets you can remember, help you understand the concepts, and point you to more resources. As always, some disclaimers. Feel free to pause and read it. And don't forget to like and subscribe. So what is cybersecurity? Cybersecurity is cyber and security. What's cyber? Cyber is things relating to computers, networks, and the internet. It's related to digital things, right? We hear cyber all the time. It's attached to all kinds of words now. And what does security mean? It means to protect and secure from cybercrime, an incident, or some other misfortune. So that's the basics of cybersecurity. There's actually a little bit more. Now, I define it in my book this way. Cybersecurity is cyber plus security. Cybersecurity means securing things in cyberspace and protecting against cybercrime. And that's from my cyber law book, page 170. And I'm easing the reader into it. There's more to cybersecurity than just that. Because if we're going to think about cybersecurity, we should also talk about information security and something called information governance or information management. Now, in my book, I use that word things, which is pretty vague, right? But I'm easing the reader into it, and by that I mean information assets. Those computer devices, our data, our online accounts, our networks. That's what I mean by things and information assets. Now, I mentioned information security. So how does that relate to cybersecurity? Well, cybersecurity is a subset of information security. So if cybersecurity relates to those digital things, information security relates to all those other things. In the glossary of my book, I talk about cybersecurity as the process of securing digital information and protecting from cybercrime. I talk about the objectives, CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability of digital assets. But then I also define in the glossary information security, which is similar to cybersecurity, but it also includes everything non-cyber. If it's on paper, if it's said out loud, you want to think about information security and that CIA triad, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. Cybersecurity is a process like any other, and that involves managing. It involves decision making. So cybersecurity starts with people and the decisions they make to manage their information systems and the risks surrounding them. They need to think about their mission, the laws, cybercrime threats, the potential for accidents and disasters. That's summarized also from my cyber law book. This is my 4 pillars of cybersecurity. Let's talk about that. It's helpful, it's simple, it's intuitive, and it starts with the first pillar of build knowledge and awareness, because it's the people that need to detect things and make decisions about how to configure them and how to manage them. So that's why that's my first pillar of cybersecurity. You need to secure computer devices, your servers, laptops, tablets, and smartphones. You need to secure your data, wherever that data is stored, including your internet accounts. Then you need to secure your networks and how you use the internet. And we need to repeat and continually improve. And I like to start talking about cybersecurity with these 4 pillars. If the 4 pillars of cybersecurity is my way of thinking about what cybersecurity is, why do we do cybersecurity in the first place? And I like to focus people on these 3 goals. And the first goal is what most people think about, which is to protect, meaning to protect from cybercrime. Cybersecurity, protecting against cyber crime, trying to prevent it from happening in the first place. The next goal is what a lot of lawyers think of and compliance folks, and that's comply with the laws surrounding cybersecurity. And there are laws. So as a lawyer, I'm focused on compliance, but I also know a lot of people in the organization are not. They're focused on other things. And some people in an organization think, a cybercrime's not going to happen to me. So they're even not that concerned about the protect. But everybody in the organization should be concerned with the mission. And cybersecurity, while you're doing it, you can do things more efficiently if you're managing your information assets better. So that's my 3 goals of cybersecurity: protect, comply, and mission. And let's talk about the protect from cybercrime, because it can devastate. It can put a company out of business. And most cybercrime is for profit, so I focus people on the 3 priority cybercrime threats: email-based funds transfer frauds, data breach, and ransomware. And here's those bigger graphics. Data breach, where data is stolen, and that could be reportable under the laws. Ransomware, where data is encrypted with malware, ransomware, and the company is extorted to pay that ransom. And then email-based funds transfer frauds, where cyber criminals use email to impersonate people and misdirect where the bank wire is going. So we want to be aware of those. I have another video on cybercrime where I talk a little bit more about each. There are 3 objectives of cybersecurity. If you are studying for a cybersecurity certification, you need to know these. You'll also see them contained within cybersecurity laws. The 3 main objectives of cybersecurity, you can remember them with the initialism of CIA. Let's first talk about the 3 words: confidentiality, integrity, availability. So first you remember those 3 words, then you remember a little bit about each of them. Confidentiality means keeping unauthorized users from accessing the systems or data. Integrity means that only authorized users can make changes. Availability means that authorized users can access their systems and data when needed. So that's the 3 main objectives of cybersecurity. To achieve those 3 objectives of cybersecurity, there are 3 types of controls, also known as safeguards, that are applied by the organization. You can remember that with the initialism of PAT, P-A-T. And first we remember those 3 words: physical controls, administrative controls, and technical controls. Now let's dig in a little more on each. Physical controls restrict physical access in one way or another. For example, if you keep good physical control of your smartphone when you're in a restaurant or a bar or wherever you are, that's a good physical control. But if you leave it on the table unattended where someone could grab it, then maybe you might wish you had better physical control over it. An administrative control includes rules, policies, and training. Organizations need rules about how they are going to manage cybersecurity. And technical controls include things like firewalls, antivirus, monitoring systems. A lot of people think cybersecurity is just about the technical controls, but now you know it's about these 3 types of controls. Now, there are different ways to categorize safeguards. You may hear others, for example, preventative, proactive, detective, corrective, responsive, but I suggest you start by remembering these 3 PAT types because they are more intuitive. Now let's talk about authentication. This is the last triplet for you. Authentication is the process through which an information system identifies the user. There are 3 factors of authentication that can be used to make this identification: something you know, something you have, and something you are. So remember those 3 factors of authentication. Here's a little more about each. Something you know is like a password or a security question. Something you have is something you have, like a smartphone or a token. And something you are is something about you, like your fingerprint or facial features. So those are the 3 factors of authentication. Remember that if you're only using one factor, such as a password, that's not enough security. That's why it's recommended that you use multi-factor authentication or 2-factor authentication for important cloud accounts like email. There is a lot we can cover on cybersecurity. A lot of that is for another video. We can talk about authorization, the principle of least privilege, management, decision-making, risk management, encryption, a little bit of history on information security because that's been around for thousands of years. We want to consider that there is a lot of guidance out there, like frameworks, and I'll touch on that next. And we can talk about how to implement cybersecurity in a small organization. I actually have a separate series on that. I'll talk about that in a second too. Cybersecurity can get complicated, especially for organizations and especially for very large organizations. And cybersecurity frameworks are just best practices to help organizations manage their cybersecurity. In my book on policies and procedures, I call those best practices external guidance. There are a lot of frameworks out there. Each is organized a little bit differently using different terminology. And one very simple framework, but not many people have heard of it, is my 4 pillars of cybersecurity. And if you're going to Google it, you got to put my name in front of it for Bandler's 4 pillars of cybersecurity. It'll get you to my website, because if you just Google 4 pillars of cybersecurity, you're going to get results from 50 different places, and their pillars are different from mine. Everybody's got a different opinion. The most popular freely available framework is the NIST Cybersecurity Framework. NIST stands for the United States' National Institute of Standards and Technology. It's free, it's respected, and I have an article to explain the basics of it. And there are many others also. My framework is free and very simple. The NIST framework is free and much more complicated, much more robust. So I suggest those are your 2 first stops. There are laws regarding cybersecurity, and that's part of cyber law. I wrote a book on it, and it's important we all know something about law. And if you are interested in cybersecurity or working there, you need to know something about these laws. If you've seen my other videos on law and cyber law, you're familiar with how I break it down, and I'll recap that quickly. Law is for everyone, not just for lawyers. If you're interested in cybersecurity, you need to know about cyber law. Now, cyber law is a subset of law, and that's where technology and law intersect. And here's the cover of my book on cyber law, which also includes an introduction to law. Let's forget cyber law for just a second and think about law in general. If you've seen my video on law, you know we can break down law into 2 main categories. There's criminal law and there's civil law. Now let's focus on criminal law for a sec. Cyber criminals commit cybercrime. That needs to be investigated and prosecuted. There's laws for that. That's what we're protecting against with cybersecurity. But if we add our cyber law bubble there, we can see where cyber law and criminal law intersect. Let's call that cybercrime criminal law, or just cybercrime law. And that's the bad things that cyber criminals are doing, and we're trying to protect against. We're trying to detect it, investigate it, maybe report it to law enforcement. So that's the criminal part. If we're working on cybersecurity, we also need to comply with the civil laws that apply to cybersecurity. Let's call that cybersecurity civil law or cybersecurity law, and that's a part of data law. And let's zoom in and expand on what that data law is. I have another video on data law, and just for now, it's good to know that data law has 4 main parts. Cybersecurity law is one part of data law. There's also data breach notification law, meaning if organizations are breached and consumer data is accessed or stolen, there might be a law that says that has to be reported to the government. and the people whose data was stolen. There's laws for secure data disposal. There's laws for privacy. And that's how I think about data law. See my other video if you're interested in that. There is a legal duty for cybersecurity. Organizations have that legal duty. And here is my summary of that law for cybersecurity in 3 words. Have reasonable cybersecurity. Now, I'm not trying to oversimplify the laws, but if you want a 3-word takeaway of them, that's it. Have reasonable cybersecurity. And I can give you a little bit more that'll help you be your guideposts on how to manage your organization's cybersecurity. You want to be reasonable and diligent, as you should be with all things in life. And don't be negligent or sloppy. If we were digging in deeper, which I do in my book, we look to cybersecurity laws, and many states have them, and the federal government has it for certain sectors like finance and health. And we also look to negligence law. Every organization needs a cybersecurity program. I have free resources on that. I built some videos, which I put into a YouTube and Udemy course, all free for you. Now let's wrap this video up. Some key takeaways. Cybersecurity is cyber plus security plus more. It includes cybercrime prevention and information security. There's laws about cybersecurity. That's a part of cyber law. We talked about my 4 pillars of cybersecurity, which are knowledge, devices, data, networks. We talked about my 3 goals of protect, comply, and mission. We talked about the 3 objectives of cybersecurity: confidentiality, integrity, availability. The 3 controls to be applied: physical, administrative, and technical. Every organization needs a cybersecurity program. I have free do-it-yourself resources. And next coming up is my references slide if you want a deeper understanding: website articles, books, YouTube videos. Here's my references and resources. These will all be in the video description. Thanks for watching this all the way through. Please like and subscribe, and feel free to comment and suggest a video or resource. I have videos on law, cybercrime, my cybersecurity program, and I'm building out more as time and motivation allows. Disclaimers, of course, and thanks again for watching and subscribing.